year here in New England, isn't it? Long daylight hours. Where we live, it's both a joy and a frustration at about 5 o'clock on June mornings to hear the runners talking as they pump down the road, and then to hear the cyclists talking as they move down the road, right? And you love it, like they're out so early and they're covering miles. I sat down at my little local coffee shop at 7:45 the other morning, and a rather old woman came cycling up and said she'd just come from Newburyport and she was on her way to Gloucester. And I was like, I put my bike away. I don't know. Why are we drawn to the beauty? We're drawn to the beauty because of the transcendence, right? It calls to us. It speaks to our souls. Today, friends, is Pentecost. Today is the day we've celebrated Jesus' resurrection. 40 days after that, we celebrated, and we did it last Sunday. 40 days-ish after that, we celebrate his ascension. Today, 50 days later, which is 7 times 7 days, 49 days later, plus 1, 7 times 7, a Sabbath of Sabbaths, a Jubilee's worth of time, we celebrate Pentecost, which is when Jesus sends his Spirit. Jesus told them, you're sad because I'm going away, but you ought to rejoice because if I didn't go away, I wouldn't be able to send my Spirit. And because I'm going away, I'll send my Spirit to be in and to be with you. Some of us, though, that makes sense, but our experience of the Holy Spirit and the people we know who have talked the most about the Holy Spirit maybe has been a little off-putting. Maybe it's a little pushy. Maybe it feels more like we're going to be sort of overcome and run over and our personality obliterated, sort of. The Spirit will come over me and I don't know what happened to me. And, these things happen. And we think, I don't know. I'm not comfortable losing control. I don't know why that connects to Jesus. What is that about? I want to be made whole, not obliterated, right? And maybe that's our anxiety about Pentecost. What if we see it this way? The same Spirit in the beauty of nature, creation, that, as we're told in Romans 1, God's greatness is revealed through that. What if that same Spirit that tugs on our hearts there and the Holy Spirit of God are the same Spirit? What if that's the same Spirit? And that same tug in our hearts, the sting of beauty, is the same Spirit that's the Spirit of Jesus. Now, you will find moments in the New Testament where Paul will say something like, the spirit of the world is evil, or something like that. He doesn't mean nature. That's not about creation. That's about empire. It's about the way humans order life to put themselves in charge and get the things they want. The very embarrassing to our nation public spat between two very powerful and public figures in the past week is a great example of the spirit of the world. That is exactly what Paul means by the spirit of the world. And that's the sort of thing he's talking about. He's not talking about the beauty of God's creation. So when he says these things, he's not criticizing God's creation. In fact, it works the other way around. In the beginning, the Spirit of God hovers over the waters, and out of that brings creation. The same one who speaks the word, who speaks that creation into being, is the same one who is the Word made flesh in John chapter 1. The creating Spirit and the incarnate Spirit are the same Spirit. In Genesis 2, the complementary creation story, God forms Adam, which is simply the Hebrew word for clay stuff. He forms Adam out of the stuff of the earth, and he breathes his Spirit into him. So the human is, most basically, in a sense, earth stuff plus the Spirit of God. The Hebrew word Yahweh, the name of God. There's scholars who feel that that is really basically just breathing. It's Yahweh. It's just breath. Because breath is life. And it's then saying that God is that mystery of life, sort of under which you can't get. You can't get any more fundamental. You can't get deeper than breath. And that's therefore a great name for God. Paul in Athens will connect Spirit of God and Spirit of nature when he speaks to them, and he quotes them, he says, we have some common ground here, he says to these folks who know nothing of Jesus. He says, in him we live and move and have our being. So even some of your own poets have said we are his offspring. So today, we want to take a breath and welcome the Holy Spirit of God, because we realize the Holy Spirit of God is maybe not quite what we were afraid of. I've been reading N.T. Wright's biography of Paul. It's brilliant. I picked it up on a whim, had it in the house, started reading it, had no idea, didn't have it on my list. Oh, it's so good. But he also said this. I stumbled on this leading into this. I wasn't looking for something for today, but I stumbled on this. In the introduction, he says this. He says, by the way, in this book, despite protest, I keep the lowercase s in Holy Spirit. Because when Paul wrote the Greek word pneuma, spirit, he did not have the option of a distinction between upper and lower case. His letters were in any case written to be read out loud. The word pneuma had to make its way in a world where it had shades of philosophical and religious meaning without the help of visible markings. And I read that and I thought, yeah, but they called it the Holy Spirit, Paul. Come on. Or, right? Come on. But as usual, N.T. Wright knows what he's talking about. So I did the data on Paul. There are 143 times in Paul's letters where he uses the word Spirit. In 108 of those, he's talking about the Holy Spirit or God's Spirit. In the others, he's sort of talking about his own spirit or whatever. In 16 of those 108, he says Holy Spirit, which means in 92 of them, he doesn't. So 85% of the time, he doesn't say Holy Spirit. He just says Spirit. And Wright's pointing out that that was not capitalized. So I did a little more. Of those 92, 14 of those are Spirit of a proper noun. Spirit of Christ, Spirit of God, Spirit of the living God, Spirit of God's Son, Spirit of Jesus Christ, Spirit of him who raised Christ. 5 of them are Spirit of an adjective, we might say. Spirit of holiness, Spirit of gentleness, Spirit of life, Spirit of wisdom and revelation, Spirit of adoption. Like anything with Paul and anybody, it's hard to perfectly categorize this, but you sort of get the feeling that when Paul's talking about the Spirit as person, he uses a capital, or he doesn't, but we could, it would work. And when he's talking about the Spirit in its feeling or something like that, then, maybe you don't. So we tried this. There's another super brilliant scholar. He's a professor at Notre Dame named David Bentley Hart. David Bentley Hart, like N.T. Wright, has written his own New Testament translation. They're both quite good. So our New Testament lesson this morning came from David Bentley Hart's translation. Now, who noticed that not every use of Spirit was capitalized when it was read? Some of you did. Let's just try it. Super quick. We're going to try it. So, if you want, follow along on the liturgy. If not, I'll put my hand up for capital S's and down for lowers. Let's just give it a roll. But you are not in flesh, but rather in spirit, since God's Spirit dwells in you. But if one does not have the Spirit of the anointed, this one is not his. But if the anointed is in you, the body is dead on account of sin, and yet the Spirit is life on account of righteousness. But if the Spirit of the one who raised Jesus from the dead dwells in you, he who raised the anointed one, Jesus, from the dead, will also make your mortal bodies live through the indwelling of his Spirit. I was surprised by that one. I thought he might go small s on that one, but he didn't. So then, brothers, we are indebted not to the flesh to live according to the flesh. For if you live according to the flesh, you are about to die. But if you put the deeds of the body to death by spirit, you will live. That's God's Spirit he's talking about there. He's talking about God's Spirit working in us, right? And you get that, right? It works. What does it feel like to be in touch with God's Spirit in me? It's not a thing that overcomes me. It's the presence of God with me. For as many as are led by God's Spirit, these are God's children. For you did not receive again a spirit of slavery to fear, but rather received a spirit of adoption. So that's God's Spirit again, but spirit of fear versus spirit of adoption, both of them lower S. How it works. In which we cry, Abba, Father. The Spirit itself testifies, along with our spirit, that we are God's children. He's just trying to make it feel the way it felt when it was written. He's trying to give it back that freshness and make it accessible. Because again, as Wright pointed out, there were all kinds of ideas in the Mediterranean world about what spirit meant. And when Paul wrote his letters, and he used that word, what made the Holy Spirit different had to be something other than presenting it so formally that it was like a thing. It had to be something about its connection to God and to Jesus. So maybe today, on Pentecost, maybe we can open up our heart to an understanding of the Holy Spirit where we both recognize that the Holy Spirit is the third person of the Holy Trinity and worthy of holy and capital S Spirit when addressed as such, but also that the Spirit moves and works and flows and gets into us. And it's Jesus' core personality. It's Jesus' charisma, his ethos, his aura, if you will. Jesus breathed on them. That's Genesis 2 redo. That's humanity reset. That, friends, is that the Holy Spirit doesn't come to obliterate you, but to heal and fulfill. And being filled with God's Spirit doesn't take you away. It turns you into your true and authentic, always intended, beautiful self.